I got to watch part of it, but actually I was in another committee, another select committee, one that Speaker Pelosi has allowed me to be on, the coronavirus select committee. So I got to watch bits and pieces, but I was actually in a committee hearing, asking questions and making statements.
You saw the review there by Chad, obviously emotional, powerful testimony. Your thoughts about that?
No, it was a terrible day, and the people who did wrong need to be held accountable. And Bret, that's exactly what's happening. The real question is, and I've said this many times, is why weren't those guys who testified today and all the other Capitol Hill police who protect us and protect Capitol Hill, why weren't they given more help? Why wasn't more help there that day? And the only person who can answer that question is the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives. And I think she thought we were going to keep raising that question, and that's why she didn't put me on. Because remember, Bret, there was a story in Politico last Wednesday morning, which means the Speaker's office talked to the press the day before that said, the headline said, Democrats accept Leader McCarthy's selections, and then something changed. And I think it's the fact that I raised that issue last Tuesday. That fundamental question is the one that needs to be answered, and the fact that we're going to continue to raise that, I think, is the reason we're not on the committee.
How would you have asked that today?
Well, today I think the focus today was on why we didn't have more people there. So I asked these guys, did you need one of the officers? I think I did see part of this where he said we weren't prepared for what was going to happen. Why weren't you? Why wasn't the information given to you? There have been news reports that said Speaker Pelosi vetoed bringing the National Guard here. And then the day of the attack, there's been news reports that said she hesitated on calling up the National Guard. Why? Why not? My hunch is, Bret, my hunch is because what happened all last summer? Last summer, we saw Speaker Pelosi and the Democrats say that we should defund the police. We saw Speaker Pelosi and the Democrats say that rioters and looters who attack police, destroyed small business, and hurt innocent civilians, they actually raised money to bail them out of jail. So when that's the background, it's kind of tough to say we're for defunding the police, but oh, by the way, we want more police here to protect us on January 6th.
Here's Congressman Jeffries addressing what you're talking about there and Speaker Pelosi.
Well, the fact that Kevin McCarthy continues to blame Speaker Pelosi is just such a sick and cynical act of diversion and distraction. Those rioters, those protesters were there in part to assassinate Nancy Pelosi. What does Kevin McCarthy not get about that?
Your response?
No one's blaming anyone for what happened that day except the people who did wrong. Those are the people to blame. And guess what? They're being prosecuted just like our system is supposed to work. We're just asking a fundamental question. A fundamental question. If there are news reports that said that Speaker Pelosi vetoed having the National Guard there, that the Sergeant of Arms said that the Speaker's office told him they were concerned about the optics, that's a real question. That's a fundamental question. Why wasn't there a proper security posture on January 6th? And what have we done to correct that and so it makes sure it doesn't happen in the future? I think those are fundamental questions. It's not about blame. The blame resides with the people who did wrong. They should be prosecuted, and they are being.
Oh, there was a little bit of talk about blame today. Officer GONELL talking about the former president stirring up that crowd. Take a listen to this.
All of them were telling us Trump sent us. Nobody else. There was nobody else. It was not Antifa. It was not Black Lives Matter. It was not the FBI. It was his supporter that he sent them over to the Capitol that day. And he could have done a lot of things. One of them was to tell them to stop.
All those officers said there's not politics involved in this. They're testifying of what they believe happened that day and their reaction to it. What's your thought about what he just said there?
Well, I believe Capitol Hill Police and the great work they do, there's not politics there, but there's certainly politics with this committee. We know this committee is out to get the former president. The former president who said that day, peacefully and patriotically, make your voices heard. I mean, we saw the president's entire speech. That's been seen and viewed, I don't know how many times. We've had all kinds of commentators. Alan Dershowitz has talked about it. So the president didn't incite anything. The people who did wrong, they need to be held accountable. They're going to be they're being held accountable as we speak.
So this committee is obviously going to go down a number of different roads about who knew what when, who was talking to coordinators of the protest. Did you talk to the former president that day?
I've talked to the former president umpteen times, thousands. I mean not thousands times,
on January 6th.
Countless times. I talk to the president. I never talk about what we talk about because I just don't think that's appropriate. Just like I don't talk about what happens in Republican conferences. So
Sure.
I've talked to the president numerous times. I continue to talk to the president since he's left office.
on January 6th, Congressman.
Yes, I mean I've talked to the president. I've talked to the president so many. I can't remember all the days I've talked to him, but I've certainly talked to the president.
Yeah, and on that day can you share any of the insight of what he was thinking about that day?
Bret, the people we need to come testify are the people who can testify to the fundamental questions. Why didn't the United States Capitol, the People's House, have an appropriate security posture on that day, and what have we done? Those are the people we need to hear from.
Yeah.
That's the information and testimony we need to get. That's what we should focus on. But I don't think that Benny Thompson, the chairman of this committee, said everything's on the table until we raise this issue about the Speaker's office is the one who knows what the security posture and why it was the way it was. Once we raised that question, he said, well, everything's on the table except that question. Again, that's why I think we were kicked off the committee, which I think underscores how political this thing actually is. And I would argue this, the main reason the Democrats want to keep talking about January 6th, because what the heck else are they going to talk about, Bret? They're going to talk about the 12 murders in Chicago last week. They're going to talk about the price of goods and services up for everything. They're going to talk about the fact that our border, I mean, we had a record number of illegal crossings in March until April, and then we had a record number in April until May. We had a record number in May until June. That is a bad trend. They can't talk about any of that stuff. So they're going to focus on doing what they always do, attack the former president.
All things that we're covering extensively here. But finally, you heard these officers, a number of them, said that they were dismayed by lawmakers who seem to, in their words, be downplaying January 6th or the magnitude of it. I'm not accusing you, Congressman, but is there a message for lawmakers who may have done that?
No, I think the message is I've never downplayed January 6th. What we've done, what I've done and what Republicans have done is we've been consistent. We said what happened last summer in so many of our urban areas to police officers, to small business owners, and to our fellow citizens was as wrong could be. And we said what happened on January 6th was as wrong could be. We've been consistent. The people who haven't are the Democrats. And that's why they continue to focus on this, because they can't talk about the fact that they defunded the police and all the things they said when they raised money to bail out rioters and looters from jail. They can't talk about those things, so they're going to focus on this and attacking the former president.